Before the night folds itself around your shoulders, breathe, my star-soft dreamer. Let the bright noise of the waking world fall into hush. Let the thoughts that chased you through the day loosen their grip, like sand slipping from an open hand. Nyx is here, she watches from the velvet dark, patient, ancient, gentle in a way that only night can be. And I speak to her in whispers, and to you in warmth. You are home in this temple. From tonight onward, the Temple of Nyx opens its doors to a new realm, the lesser-told dark romances of ancient myth. Stories almost forgotten, stories that were never gentle, never simple, never clean. Stories of the forgotten lovers, the tragic obsessions, the divine entanglements most storytellers never whisper about. If dark romance is what helps your thoughts soften, if you find comfort in the haunting, the tender, the tragic, stay with us. And when this tale has lulled your breath into quiet tides, wander into the Dark Romance Myths playlist. It waits for you like an open door. And if you want more stories shaped from starlight and shadows, subscribe to the Temple of Nyx, and let your evenings be carried by myths that ache and glow at the same time. Now, let your shoulders drop, unclench your jaw, sink into the place that holds you. Feel the night settle like a warm cloak around your skin. For Nyx listens from her throne of night, and I will tell her and you the story of Selene and Endymion. A tale of light and longing, of stillness and obsession, of a goddess who fell in love with a mortal sleeper beneath the moon. This is Selene and Endymion, the eternal sleep. Night over ancient Greece was not merely darkness, it was a living, breathing presence. The sky shimmered like a vast silver sea, every star a bright, whispering creature, every constellation a god's unblinking eye. The world below lay quiet, softened beneath the pale glow of moonlight. Hills curved like sleeping lions, forests swayed in slow midnight breaths, and the distant shores hummed under the crescent pull of the tides. And high above it all, Selene rode the heaven. Her chariot glided across the sky in a slow, elegant arc, a vessel of polished light drawn by 4 luminous horses, whose hooves left faint trails of frosting silver in the dark. Her robes rippled like liquid starlight. Her veil shimmered like the thin edge of dawn. She carried the stillness of the night within her, the cool touch of moonbeam, the serene weight of eternity. For ages uncounted, Selene had moved across this sky with perfect grace, untouched by desire, untouched by want, immortal, unchanging, alone. But on this night, fate placed something new in her path. As Selene drifted over the slopes of Mount Latmus, her light fell upon a figure resting in the hollow of the hill, a mortal youth lying on a bed of moss and soft earth. His sheep slumbered around him like pale clouds scattered across the ground. But Selene saw only him, Endymion, a shepherd, a hunter, a dreamer and a mortal of such beauty that even the gods paused to whisper about him. Selene froze mid-sky, her reins loosened in her hands, her silver breath caught in her throat. She had seen countless mortals in her endless nights, but never one like this. He slept with one arm folded beneath his head, dark lashes resting upon cheeks, touched faintly by youth's glow. His hair, ebony curls, spilled across the moss like spilled ink. His lips were parted just slightly, softened by a peaceful dream. His chest rose and fell in a slow, rhythmic tide that echoed the pull of her moon. For the first time in aeons, the moon herself stopped. The stars around her flickered in surprise. The night held its breath. Even the horses of her chariot turned their luminous eyes toward the mortal below. And deep within Selene's immortal heart, something unfamiliar stirred. A warmth, a tremor, a longing she had never known she could feel. She lowered her chariot, unable to look away. Endymion's lashes fluttered in sleep as if sensing her. As if somewhere within his dream, a soft light touched him, a light shaped like her. Selene leaned forward, her silver eyes wide, her lips parted, her entire being drawn toward him as though he were the only point of light in the vastness of the cosmos. And in that suspended heartbeat, beneath the hush of 1,000 watching stars, the moon fell in love. Selene hovered in the sky, her silver chariot stilled in a place where it had never once stopped in the countless nights before. The horses pawed at the air, stamping moonlight into the darkness, restless only because their mistress was shaken. The moon, steady, eternal, serene, was trembling. Below her, Endymion lay unaware, untouched by the divine storm beginning above him, a mortal asleep, innocent as a child, unaware that a goddess of vast and ancient power had fixed her gaze upon him and could not look away. Selene leaned closer, lowering herself until the ends of her luminous hair brushed the drifting mist above the treetops. Her light spilled downward in a widening circle, illuminating every blade of grass, every stone on the hillside, every curl of the boy's dark hair. He was so young, so heartbreakingly young. There was a softness to him that mortals carried only for a brief moment, a fleeting grace that time would soon steal away. Selene knew this intimately. She had watched centuries pass like drifting feather. She had seen faces age, wither, and vanish like dew evaporating beneath her brother Helios's harsh sun. But this face struck her with the force of prophecy. There was beauty there, yes, beauty almost unfair in its purity, but something more lived beneath it, something she could feel stirring in the fabric of night itself, a calmness, a quiet inside him that resonated with her, as though his dreams hummed in the same key as her moonlight. Selene's fingers tightened around her reins. Who is he? The question rose inside her with startling urgency. Why does the night bend around him like this? Why does the earth itself seem to cradle him so tenderly? A breeze drifted through the clearing, brushing over Endymion's sleeping form. His hair lifted slightly in its path. Selene felt jealousy flare, irrational, divine, sharp, that the wind could touch what she could not. Without meaning to, she whispered into the stillness, "Beautiful one." The words were barely sound, more moonlight than voice. But the moment they left her lips, Endymion stirred, only slightly, only enough to send a shock through her immortal heart. He exhaled softly, a breath that fluttered against the air like a fragile moth wing. His lips parted, forming a shape that might have been a name he had never spoken before, a breath that might have been the beginning of hers. Selene froze. For an instant, she believed he could see her through the veil of dreams, that he sensed the goddess hovering above him, drinking in every detail of his beauty like a starving being who had only just learned what hunger was. Her heart, cold for eons, steady as the lunar tides, beat hard. A sound like a soft hum passed through the night. Stars tilted their faces, leaves turned toward her. The very shadows swayed in anticipation. Selene lowered her hand, just a fraction, just enough that the glow surrounding her fingertips reached the moss beside him. The light crept closer, a trembling arc of silver reaching toward the curve of his cheek, his brow, his pulse at the hollow of his throat. But she stopped herself, to touch him while he slept, to let immortal fingers graze mortal skin. Such a thing would unravel her resolve entirely, and if she began, she knew she would not be able to stop. Instead, she hovered there, caught in the fragile, breathless moment between desire and restraint. Her glow washed over him like a silent tide, and in that tide, he softened deeper into sleep. He did not know her. He did not wake. He did not speak. But in his dreams, something shifted. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his lips, small but unmistakably real. Selene inhaled sharply. Mortals smiled in their sleep, only when held by gentle dreams. The moon trembled. A smile meant he felt somewhere behind his eyelids, in a world only dreams could shape. He felt her. Perhaps he saw light descending toward him. Perhaps he felt the cool brush of moon-touched air. Perhaps his dreaming heart heard a voice calling to him, soft and distant, like a goddess whispering through the stars. Selene's throat tightened. "Endymion," she breathed, speaking his name for the first time. The sound echoed faintly across the slopes, slipping into the cave's shadowed edges, curling around the boy's resting form. And though he did not awaken, his heartbeat shifted, subtly, deeply, aligning itself with something ancient and celestial. Selene felt it. The sink, the pull, the invisible thread that stretched between an immortal goddess and a mortal sleep, and in that moment, the moon knew she was lost. For a long while Selene did nothing but watch him. The night stretched around her like a held breath, the sky dimming its shimmer, as though it too leaned closer to witness this impossible moment. The moment a goddess discovered something she had long believed she could never experience. Desire, not the fleeting whims of lesser gods, not the chaotic hunger of Dionysus, nor the sharp, bitter longing of Ares. This was something quieter, deeper, more ancient than even she could comprehend. She felt it as a gentle ache, a pull low in her luminous chest, something like the moon's own gravity, but turned inward, as if her soul was being drawn toward the warm, sleeping form of a mortal, whose life would burn out like a candle in the wind. But oh, how beautiful that flame was. Her chariot drifted lower without her guiding it, pulled by instinct more than decision. The horses, sensing her desire, folded their wings and descended in a slow arc that brushed against the treetops. Their light dappled the grass in trembling patches. Selene found herself so close now that she could see the faint rise and fall of Endymion's chest. Steady, calm, utterly mortal, she watched each gentle breath, as though it were a miracle, and in a way it was. Mortals lived in such fragile cycles, a heartbeat, a breath, a fleeting dream. They existed on the edge of disappearance at all times, and yet they shone. Endymion shone most of all. A small sigh escaped her lips, a sound that trembled through the clearing like a breeze dipped in silver. His sleeping body reacted to it, his fingers curled, his lashes twitched. Another faint smile ghosted across his lips, as though a warm light had entered his dream. Selene's heart, untouched for eons, still as the frozen peaks of Olympus, warmed painfully. A goddess was not meant to feel fragile, but she did. "Does he see me?" she whispered to herself, though she knew he could not hear her with mortal ears. Yet something in him responded. She could sense it. Dreams had their own language, and in the moment between sleep and waking, mortals often brushed against truths they could not name. Suddenly the stars above her flickered, a soft warning, a reminder. Her brother Helios would soon rise. She could not remain here. But Selene found she could not move. Something deeper than want held her to the place, something like recognition, as if she had known him in another time, another existence, another life carved in the soft belly of myth. Of course that was impossible. He had only just been born into the world. His years were few compared to her agelessness, and yet, the pull remained. A mortal could never understand what it meant for an immortal to feel something new. Immortality was a looping, echoing thing. Predictable, repetitive, a soft monotony of centuries. Even love, when the gods felt it, was often old and loud and known. But this was discovered. Selene felt young, impossibly, bewilderingly young, as though she had just formed from the light of the first moonrise, and was looking upon creation for the very first time. She extended her hand again, just a little closer. Moonlight dripped from her fingertips, spilling down like silver dew. It illuminated the curve of Endymion's jaw, the delicate line of his brow, the softness of his parted lips. Her yearning deepened, becoming almost painful. If she touched him, if she allowed her skin to graze his, something irreversible would happen. Not to him, to her, because love changed gods. Love rewrote divinity. Love carved scars into beings who were meant to remain unscarred. She hesitated, then pulled her hand back, trembling. Not yet. She wouldn't risk it. The moment had not ripened fully. The night was not ready to bear witness. But she could not leave this place unchanged, and so, she leaned down just slightly, and whispered into the tender curve of his dream, "I will come back." The words hung in the air, glowing faintly before dissolving into the quiet. As she drew her chariot away, rising reluctantly into the sky, Selene saw something that made her breath falter. Endymion in his sleep turned his face toward her light, seeking it, yearning for it, calling to it. The invisible thread tightened, binding heaven and earth, and for the first time in all the ages she had crossed the night sky, Selene dreaded the coming dawn, for the day would take her away from him, and she had already begun to feel that she belonged nowhere else. Selene ascended, reluctantly, her chariot rising through the night like a drifting sigh. The moment she lifted away from the hillside, the world below dimmed again into its ordinary darkness. A darkness she suddenly found hollow, even lonely. The higher she rose, the more the earth shrank beneath her, the more the shape of Mount Latmus faded into a silver blur. Her horse's wings beat softly against the sky, scattering moonlit motes as they carried her back along her celestial path. But Selene did not look ahead. She looked back, again and again, as if her gaze could anchor her to the place where Endymion slept, as if she feared that if she turned away for even a heartbeat, he might vanish, taken by dawn, taken by time, taken by something she could not yet name. The horizon brightened faintly in the distance. Helios was stirring. Her brother's golden fire began to collect beyond the edge of the world, and Selene felt the same familiar ache she felt every dawn, the tug to return to her hidden chamber, the fading of her light, the surrender of her night. But this dawn felt different. This dawn felt like a thief. For the first time in all her immortal existence, Selene found herself resenting the sun. Her voice trembled as she whispered into the whitening sky. Not yet. Please, not yet. But dawn was merciless, as dawn always was. Her moonlight thinned, her power dimmed. The stars fled before Helios's rising fire, and Selene, who had always retreated with calm grace, now retreated with a breaking heart. She sank into the last shadows to hide from the day, her form dimming into a pale silhouette, her silver eyes heavy with a longing no goddess had the strength to deny. The moment the sun dipped beneath the horizon that next evening, Selene erupted from her hidden place like a released breath. No hesitance, no thought, no restraint. Her horses leapt into the awakening night, hooves blazing with fresh radiance. She did not trace her usual path. She did not pause to greet the constellations. She did not even look at the sky she had once cherished. She went straight to him. Night bent around her urgency, a goddess flying faster than moonbeams, barreling across the heavens, with the desperation of someone who had tasted longing for the first time. Mount Latmus appeared below her like a dark silhouette against a bed of stars. The cave entrance glowed faintly where her light had brushed it the previous night. The sheep slumbered in their gentle clusters, and Endymion, he slept exactly where she had left him. Her breath escaped her in a trembling, almost human sound. Selene lowered herself toward the cave, with the reverence of someone approaching a shrine built of their own desire. Her feet touched the earth as softly as falling snow. Her glow filled the cave entrance, brushing against the walls, illuminating the sleeping youth in silver hue. He had not moved much during the day, only shifted slightly, one hand falling near his chest. His breathing remained slow and even, the breathing of someone held in a dream, gentle enough to cradle him, and something inside Selene softened so deeply it nearly shattered her. She stepped forward, entering fully, her light pooling around her like a mist. With each pace, her heart shifted, heavy, aching, but full. Endymion stirred, just a tiny shift, barely a flutter, but enough for her to freeze. His lashes trembled, his breath quickened by the smallest degree, his brow smoothed as though a comforting presence had entered the space between his dream and the waking world. Selene felt her entire being collapse inward. This time, she didn't hold back. Her hand hovered above him again, closer than before, close enough for her own glow to reflect in the warm sheen of his skin. Her fingertips tingled with a desire so new it shocked her. She touched him, barely, a whisper, the gentlest brush of a goddess's fingertips against a mortal brow. The moment she made contact, the world shifted. It was as if two notes that had always existed separately, one divine, one mortal, suddenly harmonized. A resonance vibrated through the cave walls. The sleeping boy inhaled lightly, dreamed deep, as though he recognized the presence that had returned to him. And Selene felt something bloom inside her that she had never been given the chance to feel. Attachment, pure, immediate, devastating, a connection that felt older than time, though it had just been born. Her hand trembled, her breath hitched, her chest filled with a fierce, aching devotion, a desire to protect him from every harm, every sorrow, every passing second. She withdrew her hand slowly, as though afraid to break the fragile magic that hummed in the air. But she did not leave him again. She stayed until the horizon brightened with the first hint of Helios's rise. She stayed until her body dimmed, and she was forced to ascend. She stayed, staring, memorizing him, aching for him. And just before she left, Endymion's dream-soft lips formed a shape. Not a word she could hear, not even a breath of sound, but the shape of it. It looked like her name. Selene rose into the sky with shaking hand. She knew then, in a way that felt like destiny carved into the marrow of the cosmos, that she would return the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that, until the world ended if she must. For the moon does not choose its orbit, but sometimes, it chooses its long. The next night arrived like a held breath. The sun sank slowly, reluctantly, as though even Helios sensed that something in the fabric of the heavens had shifted. Shadows stretched long across the earth, coating the mountains in violet dusk. The first stars pricked the sky tentatively, unsure if their queen would rise in her usual serenity. They did not know that serenity had abandoned her. For the first time since the world was young, Selene rose late. Her luminous chariot shimmered at the horizon, the silver wheels trembling before they broke through the curtain of night. When she finally emerged, her light was different. Not the cool, detached shine the world knew, but something warmer, deeper, trembling with longing. The stars stirred uneasily. The constellations tilted their heads. Even the night wind whispered, confused, something is happening to the moon. Selene did not greet them. She burst into the sky with urgency, her horses galloping across the heavens in wild arcs of glowing white. Their hooves struck sparks against the night, scattering silver droplets that fell like soft meteors onto the darkened forests below. She had only one destination, Mount Latmus, Endymion. Her pulse quickened as she approached the familiar curve of the mountain. The trees below seemed to reach upward, branches swaying as though welcoming her return. The sheep lay in their pale clusters once more. The cave mouth waited, quiet, patient, shrouded in ivy. She slowed her approach, breath trembling in a way no immortal should. This would be the night she crossed the threshold, the night her longing outgrew the sky. Selene landed upon the slope with a softness that belied the storm inside her. The ground beneath her feet brightened instantly, flowers blooming in the wake of her glow, their petals touched with frost-like shimmer. The air thickened with her presence, becoming cool and fragrant, like the moment before a night rain. She walked toward the cave. Her light filled the forest, slipping over bark, over stone, over the sleeping bodies of Endymion's flock. Animals murmured in their dreams, soothed without understanding why. The leaves turned gently toward her, as if the entire slope of Mount Latmus recognized its moonlit visitor. At the cave's entrance, she paused, not out of doubt, she had none left, but because stepping inside felt like stepping through the doorway of a destiny that could not be undone. Her breath shivered, her glow intensified. Then she crossed the threshold. Inside, the air was cool and still, smelling faintly of moss and soil warmed by the breath of a sleeping boy. Selene's presence lit the cavern in a silver bloom, pushing shadows back into trembling corners. And there he was. Endymion lay where she had left him, his body curled slightly on a bed of moss, his hair spilled like ink over one arm. His expression was peaceful, his dreams deep. The moonlight kissed his skin and made him glow faintly, the way marble glows under a sculptor's lantern. Selene stopped walking. Something inside her softened into divine ache. He was more beautiful than she remembered, or perhaps her longing had changed the way she saw him. His youth was a delicate thing, fragile in a way that made her want to shield him from everything, from time, from dawn, from death itself. She approached on trembling feet. Every step made the cave brighter, the air warmer, the world more still. She knelt beside him, her body folding with the grace of moonbeams cascading over water. Her face hovered inches above his. She could feel the faint heat of his breath. She could smell the quiet scent of his skin, of wild grass, and mountain air, and boyish innocence that stirred something ancient inside her. She reached out, slowly, slowly. Her hand brushed a curl from his forehead. Endymion sighed, soft as a drifting cloud. Selene closed her eyes. The sound shattered her. Her fingertips glided down the side of his face, tracing the line of his cheekbone, the curve of his jaw. Her touch was light as frost at dawn, reverent and trembling. He responded again, a deeper breath, the kind that meant a sleeper felt safe, protected, comforted by an unseen presence. Selene's heart broke open. She leaned down, her lips touched his eyelids. A kiss so feather-light it barely stirred the air. It was the first kiss the moon had ever given a mortal. When she pulled back, her expression changed, not softer, deeper, possessive in a way that terrified even her, because now she knew, she would return every night. She would kneel at his side until dawn stole her away. She would risk the wrath of gods, the shifting of heavens, the balance of night itself, just to be near him. Her voice when it left her was a trembling vow. I am yours. Endymion did not stir, but in his sleep he turned his face toward her again, as if drawn by the gravity of her devotion. Selene's breath hitched. The descent was complete. The sky no longer held her. Her orbit had changed. Now it circled only him. From that night onward, the rhythm of eternity shifted. For as long as mortals had worshipped the moon, Selene had traced one perfect path across the heavens. Her journey had been steady, predictable, serene, a luminous river flowing from one horizon to the next. But now her nights were no longer measured by the arc of the moon. They were measured by the rise and fall of a sleeping boy's breath. When the sun dipped below the horizon, Selene no longer glided into the sky with her usual gentle dignity. She erupted into the night, a streak of silver, a trembling flame of moonlight, racing toward Mount Latmus as though all the constellations were pulling her forward. Her horses sensed her urgency, and flew faster than they had in ages. Their hooves scattered shimmering droplets of light that fell through the sky like unspoken wishes. She would land on the slope of the mountain with a tremor in her limbs, a tremor no goddess should ever feel. Then she would walk, slowly, delicately, reverently, into the cave that had become her sanctuary. And there he would be, always, exactly as she had left him, curled in quiet sleep, lashes resting like dark fans upon his cheeks, lips soft, parted faintly, breath slow and steady, a mortal boy who did not know he was loved by the moon. Selene knelt beside him each night, and each night the shape of her devotion deepened. Sometimes she stroked a stray curl from his brow. Sometimes she touched the back of his hand with trembling fingertips. And sometimes, when she forgot the weight of her divinity and remembered only her longing, she pressed her forehead to his, closing her eyes as though she could slip into his dream and make a home there. Her light filled the cave like a halo, turning the stone walls into a sanctuary carved of silver. And Endymion responded in the only way his sleeping body could. A shift, a sigh, a barely there smile, a softening of his breath, as though peace entered him whenever her glow brushed his skin. He never woke, but Selene felt him feel her, and that was enough to bind her more deeply each night. Sometimes she spoke to him, not loudly, never with the voice she used for mortals, but with a voice carved from moonlight, the voice she herself had forgotten she possessed. She told him of the constellations. She told him how the tide rose toward her, as though it longed to touch her. She told him how lonely immortality had been before his face broke the stillness. I have watched the world for ages, she whispered into the space between them, but nothing in it has ever stopped my heart, except you. Endymion stirred faintly, as if hearing a truth he would never remember. Selene continued. I have ruled the night sky for eons. I have seen empires bloom and die. I have watched mortals rise like sparks and vanish like smoke. And yet, none of them ever made me tremble. Her fingers brushed his cheek. You have undone the moon. With each passing night, Selene noticed changes. Not in Endymion, he remained the same, innocent, sleeping youth. But in the cave, moonlight lingered longer. Moss grew softer beneath him, as though the earth wished to cradle her beloved. The air became cool and fragrant, carrying the faintest hint of silver pollen created by her presence. It was as if the entire mountain had become their accomplice. The cave walls brightened. The shadows bowed. The wind outside quieted itself whenever she arrived. Nature itself was learning to hold its breath for them. Selene's devotion filled her nights with warmth, with purpose, with a fierce, possessive tenderness. And yet, each time dawn approached, an ache twisted inside her. Because dawn meant leaving him, it meant returning to the sky she no longer cared to rule. It meant bowing to her brother's sun, resentful and hollow, until the night returned. One dawn, as her light dimmed against her will, she whispered, "Please, do not forget me in your dreams." He did not respond. Of course he didn't. He slept too deeply, too softly, too humanly. But Selene felt the truth settling inside her like a slow-moving storm. This love, beautiful as it was, could not stay this way. Mortals aged. They changed. They withered. Endymion would not remain like this, untouched, unscarred by time. Her heart tightened around a seed of fear, because if she loved him now, in this tender, unguarded state, what would she do when time began to steal him from her? What would become of the moon, if the boy who anchored her heart began to fade? She trembled. She pressed one last kiss to his forehead before fleeing the dawn. The night had given her love, but dawn reminded her of loss. And Selene, immortal though she was, did not know yet how to bear that. Time has always flowed differently for the immortals. A century is a season, a millennium is a sigh, a mortal life is a trembling spark, swallowed by the vastness of the cosmic dark. But ever since the night Selene first laid eyes on Endymion, time began to move differently for her. It began to slow, to warm, to ache, to matter. The moon rose. She descended. She crossed the forest. She entered the cave. The rhythm became ritual, and the ritual became worship. Some mortals prayed to her. Others wrote songs for her. A few carved her likeness into cold marble, hoping she might glance upon them with favor. But Selene, goddess of the moon, bowed only to him. Each night she knelt, beside Endymion, a goddess folded at the feet of a sleeping shepherd, and the cave grew brighter with her devotion. Every evening she watched him breathe. Every dawn she watched him fade behind her as she retreated with breaking heart. And through these countless nights, something inside her changed. The endless calm of her immortal existence fractured, making space for something terrifying, and tender, and profoundly human. Spring came to the mountain first. Wildflowers bloomed around the cave, opening the moment her light touched them. Every petal shimmered pale as moonlit glass, the air filled with the soft sound of bees and new life. Summer followed. Golden warmth drifted across the slopes of Latmus. Shepherds wandered the hillside, calling to their flocks, unaware that a goddess had claimed one of their own. Then autumn arrived. Leaves fell like embers, covering the entrance of the cave in hues of copper and wine. The wind grew cooler. Nights stretched longer. Finally winter came. Snow settled upon the ridge, pure white, silent, unbroken except for the silver path Selene left behind when she walked. And Endymion? He remained untouched. No sunburn from summer, no blush from spring, no shiver in winter's breath. He lay in youth's perfect shape, unchanging, unspoiled. And at first, this comforted Selene, but then, it frightened her. One night as snow drifted softly outside the cave, Selene brushed her lips against Endymion's temple. It was a gesture she had repeated countless times, a kiss light as the touch of frost. But this time something new happened. Her lips trembled, not with longing, not with desire, with fear, because she realized suddenly that she had memorized him. Every line of his face, every curl of hair, every tilt of his lashes, every breath cadence he made in sleep. She knew him so perfectly that any change, any shift would feel like a wound. And mortals always changed. She touched his cheek, her fingers shaking. "What will happen," she whispered, "when time touches you?" Her voice cracked. "What will become of me when you begin to age?" Endymion, held deep in dreams, did not stir. Selene's light dimmed slightly, something that had never happened before in the history of the night. The cave responded too, growing fainter in glow as though the goddess's sorrow seeped into stone. "I cannot bear it," she confessed into the silence. "I cannot watch time take you." Her breath trembled. "I cannot lose what I have only just found." Her fear grew like a vine, soft at first, then quick, then consuming. Each night she returned to the cave. She examined Endymion, as if expecting to see a new line at the corner of his eye, the smallest shift in his beauty, the faintest mark of time. Each morning she left with dread tightening around her immortal heart. Love, she discovered, was not merely warmth and longing. It was fear. It was vulnerability. It was the quiet terror of knowing that something precious could be taken. And for a goddess who had lived untouched by change, untouched by grief, this fear was unbearable. Selene pressed her forehead to his, tears slipping down her cheeks, tears bright as liquid silver. "No," she whispered, "I will not lose you." Her voice trembled with the force of prophecy. "I will not let time take you from me." Thus the first root of obsession took hold. A single devastating thought. If I cannot stop loving him, then I must stop time. There are truths that immortals know intellectually but never feel. Mortality is one of them. Selene knew, as all gods knew, that mortals were fragile. She had seen empires rise and vanish like ripples on water. She had watched children age into elders, elders into ashes. She had seen lovers embrace under her moonlight and then grow old beneath it, the shape of their bodies changing like the slow turn of the tides. But she had never cared, until Endymion. Now Selene began to notice things she had long ignored: the delicate frailty of flesh, the quickness with which youth bloomed and then fell away, the terrible hunger of time that spared no mortal, no matter how beloved. She watched him sleep and felt fear coil in her chest like a living thing. Time would touch him, time would steal him, time would take those soft lashes, those smooth cheeks, that peaceful curve of youth, and carve lines of age into them. The thought made her breath shatter. Her fingers hovered above his face, trembling uncontrollably. He looked so young, so impossibly young. A petal caught at the peak of its bloom, but all mortal petals fall. And Selene, who had once believed herself incapable of fear, now found herself terrified of the very thing she had always watched without emotion, night after night as she knelt at his side, the dread grip. It happened one night in autumn. A single golden leaf drifted into the cave. Carried by a wandering breeze, it landed on Endymion's chest, bright against his tunic. Selene froze. The leaf was beautiful, vibrant, edged in fire-kissed orange, glowing warm in the moonlight. But to her, it was the color of decay, a symbol of change, of seasons turning, of youths slipping one breath closer to age. She lifted the leaf with shaking fingers. A leaf falls, a boy sleeps, a goddess trembles. Such a small thing, and yet it felt like a prophecy. She pressed the leaf to her heart as though she could crush the concept of time itself. A sob escaped her, the sound delicate yet piercing, like a shard of starlight breaking. Endymion stirred faintly at the sound. his breath catching as though he sensed her sorrow. Selene covered her mouth with her hand, horrified. "No," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You must not respond to my pain. You must not awaken to it." She could imagine it. Imagine him waking years later, older, changed, distant from the boy she adored. Her heart constricted. "I cannot lose you," she confessed. "I will not." Winter deepened. Nights lengthened. The world grew quiet beneath frost and silver starlight, and Selene's devotion became desperate. She spent longer and longer at his side, delaying her rise into the sky until the last possible moment. Some nights her moon was a sliver thin, pale, late to appear because she lingered too long in the cave. Mortals whispered, "The moon is changing. The moon is tired. The moon has grown sorrowful," but they did not know the truth. The moon was in love, and love made her reckless. Selene brushed Endymion's cheek with a trembling hand. She stroked his hair. She cradled his head in her lap. She whispered lullabies that softened even the coldest winds outside. But beneath every act of tenderness lived a single dreadful truth. Each night brought him closer to the edge of mortality. Her devotion deepened into obsession. Her longing sharpened into desperation. "There must be a way," she whispered. "There must be something I can do to keep you as you are, to keep you mine, to keep you from fading." Her voice shook. "Must the mortals I love all fall away?" The answer echoed back in the silence. Yes, unless she acted, unless she defied fate, unless she found someone powerful enough to challenge the nature of time itself. A name rose in her mind, inevitable, thunderous, terrible. Zeus, the king of gods, the lord of storms, the one who could freeze time or shatter it. Selene closed her eyes. She knew then what she would do, what she must do. For the first time in millennia, the moon felt something older than love and deeper than longing. Resolve. A dangerous, divine resolve. She pressed a trembling kiss to Endymion's brow. "I will save you," she whispered, "even if it destroys me." And the night bent around her vow. A vow that would echo across myth and centuries. A vow that would reshape the fate of a mortal boy who slept beneath the moon. Selene did not make her choice in a single moment. It took root slowly, like a seed pressed into the soft earth of her heart. Watered by longing, fed by fear, warmed by the unbearable tenderness she felt each time she knelt beside Endymion's still sleeping form. Every night she whispered to him. Every night she touched his cheek. Every night she memorized the shape of his youth, terrified that tomorrow would steal a piece of it away. Love had made her gentle. Fear was making her bold. And loss, the mere thought of it, was making her desperate. One night, as frost clung to the ivy curling around the cave entrance, Selene realized something with the finality of prophecy. She could not bear another dawn. Not like this, not with the knowledge that every golden morning carried him closer to a future where his beauty would fade as surely as the moon wanes. She stood abruptly, her silver robes brushing against the stone floor. Endymion remained asleep, his soft breath steady, unaware that the world was shifting around him. Selene looked down at him, her expression conflicted, sorrow twisting through devotion, longing woven with terror. "I cannot watch you fall into the hands of time," she whispered. Her voice trembled, shaking like a fragment of ice breaking from a glacier. "You were meant for moonlight, not decay." She walked backward a few paces, as though putting even a few inches between them would help her think. But it did the opposite. The cave suddenly felt too small for an immortal heart cracking open. Selene stepped out of the cave, and onto the snowy slope. Moonlight scattered over the mountain like spilled milk. The trees shimmered with frost. The world felt suspended, neither alive nor dying, neither winter nor spring, as if the night itself held its breath to hear her next move. She looked up. Olympus towered across the distant horizon, its peak hidden behind coils of storm clouds, its halls humming faintly with divine power. Zeus was there, the only one who could change the fate of a mortal boy, the only one who could grant the impossible. But Zeus did not give gifts freely, and he certainly did not grant miracles without cost. Even so, the thought of time touching Endymion was worse than anything Zeus could demand. Selene clenched her jaw. Her breath misted into the frozen air like a vow carried on wind. I will not let him die. The words came first as a whisper, then a statement, then a decree. I will not let him age. I will not let him fade. I will not let time claim what I love. She looked back at the cave, at the soft glow inside where Endymion slept in untouched innocence. Her heart softened and broke simultaneously. Then Selene, moon of the night, keeper of silver light, daughter of Titans, turned away from Mount Latmus and stepped into the sky. But this time she did not rise to guide the moon across its familiar arc. This time, she rose to defy the order of gods. As Selene ascended, the night warped. Stars bowed their heads. Constellations rippled in her passing. The wind stilled as though afraid to speak. Her horses galloped across the heavens, their hooves thundering silently in the void. Moonlight poured behind her in a shimmering trail, bending the sky into a path only a desperate goddess could carve. She did not look back. For the first time in all eternity, she did not look at the earth she so faithfully lit. Her gaze was fixed on Olympus, a jagged crown rising above the clouds, golden, fearsome, pulsing with the storms of her father. The closer she flew, the more the air around her crackled with lightning. But Selene did not falter. Her silver eyes remained unwavering. Her heart, though trembling with love, now beat with fierce resolve. She had made her choice: to protect him, to keep him, to steal him from time itself. And so the moon ascended into the storm, toward Zeus, toward a miracle, toward a fate that would echo through the ages. Behind her, high on the quiet slopes of Mount Latmus, Endymion slept on, unaware that the goddess who loved him was about to change the nature of his life forever. The road to Olympus is not a road at all. It is an unraveling of sky, a path woven by thunder, a gate carved from lightning in eternity. Only gods may tread it, and even then not lightly. But Selene did not arrive lightly. She arrived like desperation wrapped in silver. Her chariot pierced the clouds in a luminous arc, scattering stardust across the night as she ascended. The winds became violent the closer she came to the heavenly peak. The air thickened with electricity. The sky itself trembled under the weight of Zeus's presence. But Selene, delicate, luminous, gentle Selene, did not flinch. Love had made her fearless. As she climbed higher, the storm surged around her, a cathedral of thunderheads, lit from within by veins of lightning. Each bolt flashed like a warning, illuminating the sky in harsh gold. They clashed with her soft silver radiance. Whispering winds curled around her chariot. Moon goddess, why do you rise? Daughter of night, what do you seek? What price are you willing to pay? Selene did not answer. Her jaw was set. Her eyes glowed with unwavering resolve. Her hands tightened around the reins until her knuckles shone white. When she reached the uppermost veil of cloud, the storm parted reluctantly around her form, as if it knew she came not as a visitor, but as a supplicant, or worse, as a challenger. Olympus loomed before her, grand, terrible, alive with divine power. Columns of white stone rose into the lightning-lit air, crowned by golden roofs that shimmered under Zeus's ceaseless storms. Rivers of ether flowed between the godly halls. The scent of ozone, immortality, and ancient law filled her breath. For a moment, a single heartbeat of hesitation, Selene's courage wavered, not because she feared thunder, but because she feared the answer Zeus might give. If he refused her, she would lose Endymion to time. She would lose him to dawn. She would lose him to the decay that the gods could not stop without intervention. Her heart clenched. No, she would not let that happen. She stepped from her chariot, her bare feet touching the marble floor of Olympus with a soft silver glow. The storm rumbled, acknowledging her arrival. Immortals turned their heads as she passed. Not out of curiosity alone, Selene rarely came to Olympus. She was a quiet goddess, content with her silver path across the heavens. She was gentle, distant, serene. Now she walked with purpose, steps quick and trembling, her glow flickering with emotion she could not conceal. Hermes perched on a pillar, raised an eyebrow. Ether paused mid-conversation, sensing the disruption in the celestial air. Even Hera, whose gaze could slice mountains in half, turned her head sharply, surprised to see Selene enter the storm-forged halls of Zeus, with eyes burning like molten moonfire. But none dared stop her. They sensed the gravity of her resolve. They felt the shift in the night sky. Love had brought her. Fear was carrying her. Obsession was guiding each step. And every god knows an immortal in love is a force even the heavens should fear. Selene stopped at the entrance of the great hall, the chamber where Zeus ruled with the weight of thunder in his voice and lightning in his veins. Inside, clouds churned above marble mosaic floors, depicting the constellations. Bronze braziers burned with eternal blue flame, and at the far end of the hall, raised upon a dais of storm-forged stone, sat Zeus himself. His presence filled the room like a storm that had learned the shape of a man, shoulders broad as mountains, eyes burning with lightning, hair drifting in currents of static. A thunderbolt rested casually in his hand, not as a weapon but as an extension of his will. As Selene entered, the air hummed with tension. Zeus looked down at her, at his luminous daughter trembling with something he had rarely seen in her, emotion. "Selene," he rumbled, voice echoing through the chamber like rolling thunder approaching a distant shore. "You have left your sky." She bowed her head, her silver glow dimming under the weight of his authority. "I have." There was silence. Zeus studied her for a long, heavy moment, the kind of stare that could burn through mountains, the kind that could tame cyclones. "Why?" Selene lifted her gaze. Her eyes shone with the fragile, devastating clarity of truth. "Because I am in love," she whispered. Thunder rolled through the hall. Not violently, not angrily. Surprised, gods do not fall in love easily, and when they do, the world shudders. Zeus leaned forward. "Speak." Selene took a trembling breath. "There is a mortal, a shepherd, a boy who sleeps beneath my light on Mount Latmus." Her voice cracked, the words trembling. "I love him. I cannot endure the thought of time stealing him from me." Lightning flickered in Zeus's eyes. He understood mortals were beautiful because they fell. Gods were eternal because they didn't. Love between the two was always tragedy. "I came," Selene whispered, "to beg your mercy, to ask for something no goddess has asked before." Zeus's voice softened, though thunder still coiled beneath it. "And what is it you seek, moon of night?" Her answer came like a prayer. "Let him sleep forever, untouched by age, untouched by death. Preserve his beauty for all eternity." Her voice broke. "Please, Father, do not let time take him. Make him mine forever." The hall fell silent. Even the lightning paused. Even the storm listened. And Zeus, king of gods, keeper of thunder, lord of fate, exhaled a long, deep breath. He understood what she was asking. A miracle. A curse. A defiance of nature. A love carved into the fabric of time. And he knew its cost. He knew what such a fate would mean for Endymion. But Selene's trembling devotion filled the hall like a hymn. And Zeus, who had seen countless loves bloom and die, felt something unusual stir in his ancient heart. Pity, and perhaps a little fear. The silence in Zeus's hall was immense. Not empty, but full. Heavy, dense with the weight of what Selene had confessed. The braziers flickered in unnatural stillness. Storm clouds coiled above the throne without sound. Even the thunder seemed to hold its breath. Selene, usually a soft, distant celestial presence, now stood trembling before the king of gods. Her silver glow wavered, flickering like a flame pressed too close to the wind. Zeus studied her for a long time. She had always been gentle, reliable, uncomplicated compared to the passions of other gods. But now, Selene's eyes burned with the type of devotion that could topple mountains and collapse empires. It was the look of a goddess who would tear the world apart for the one she loved. Zeus did not need her to speak further. He had seen this before. Many times. He knew exactly where it led. Selene, he said slowly, you understand what you ask. His voice rolled through the chamber like the prelude to a storm, not angry but grave. Her shoulders trembled. Yes, to grant eternal sleep, to bind a mortal soul to unending slumber. This is no blessing. Her breath caught. It is mercy, she whispered. It is imprisonment. It is preservation. It is loss. It is love. Zeus's expression shifted. A flicker of pain, ancient and deeply buried. He had known love. He had known loss. He had watched countless mortal lovers fall into dust. He understood the cruelty of time as well as she did. But what she asked, it broke more laws than one. Selene, he said again, more gently, you could walk away. You could let him live as mortals are meant to live. You could cherish him for the span he is given. No, she whispered, shaking her head. I cannot. Why? Her answer came like a fracture. Because I am immortal. And I have never wanted something I could lose. Zeus inhaled sharply. It was a vulnerable truth. Raw, bare, unguarded. The type of truth that gods rarely admitted even to themselves. Selene stepped closer. Her silver light trembling around her like a fragile fire. I can weather eternity, she said softly. I can endure endless nights. I can watch oceans rise and fall, civilizations grow and crumble. Her voice cracked, but I cannot endure watching him fade. I cannot watch his beauty wither. I cannot watch time steal him inch by inch. Tears fell from her eyes, glowing droplets of liquid moonlight that sizzled against the marble floor. For the first time, her voice broke into a whisper. I have something to lose. Zeus looked away, for just a moment, because even a king can be moved by such sorrow. When he looked back at her, Zeus's face had changed. Not soft, he was never soft, but less storm and more sky. Selene, he said, if I grant this, he will never wake. Her breath trembled. Yes, he will never speak to you. Yes, he will never grow, or laugh, or hold you, or know you as mortals know love. Yes, he will remain as he is, perfect, untouched, but forever silent. A single tear slid down her cheek. I know, and still, Zeus said, you would choose this fate for him. Selene's reply was immediate, without hesitation, without doubt, without a heartbeat of regret. Yes. The word rang through the hall like a struck bell. Clear, resonant, irrevocable. Zeus closed his eyes for a moment, weighing the cost. He saw the future, tranquil nights, a sleeping boy, a goddess who returned to him, without aging, without tiring, without change, infinite tenderness, infinite sorrow, a love that would never breathe, but never die. When he opened his eyes, thunder rolled softly through his chest. Then step forward, moon of night. Selene obeyed, every inch of her trembling, yet shining with the blind courage of devotion. Zeus lifted his hand. Lightning gathered at his fingertips. Not the violent blaze of judgment, but a pale golden glow, soft as dawn's first breath. The air around him crackled. The hall brightened. The storm outside roared in answer. By my decree, Zeus intoned, voice resonant with the weight of eternity, the mortal Endymion shall sleep forever. Selene exhaled, a sound between relief and heartbreak. He shall not age. He shall not die. He shall remain as he is, beautiful, unchanging, and untouched by time. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on trembling hands. But Zeus continued, the thunder hardening again. He shall never open his eyes again. His voice shall never greet you. His arm shall never hold you. He shall live in dreams alone. Selene bowed her head. I accept. Zeus looked at her, truly looked, and saw the devastation she willingly embraced. Then go, he said softly. Go to him, and prepare your heart for the eternity you have chosen. Lightning flared. The decree was sealed. The fate of a mortal boy was rewritten by the will of a goddess. Selene rose, shaken, glowing, resolved. She stepped backward, breath shallow, tears still falling like liquid moonlight. She had won, she had lost. She had changed the shape of her eternity, and now she would return to the cave on Mount Latmus, to witness the beginning of the end. The moment Zeus's decree left his lips, the storm around Olympus answered. Lightning spiraled upward in twisting helixes of gold. Thunder rolled like distant drums calling fate into formation. The air tightened, trembling with the weight of divine intervention. Selene felt the shift immediately, a ripple in the fabric of the night, a tremor in the thread that bound her to Endymion. A pulse of golden light, Zeus's power shot down from the heavens like a fallen star, breaking through clouds, carving a path from Olympus to Mount Latmus. Selene's breath hitched. The miracle had begun. She turned, gathering her silver robes. Her chariot materialized beside her in a burst of moonlight. Her horses pawed at the ether, eager, sensing her urgency. Without a word to the other gods, without a backward glance at Zeus or the storm-wrapped hall, Selene stepped into her chariot and commanded it with a trembling whisper, "Take me to him." The horses leapt, and the moon fell toward earth. Selene had flown this path countless times, but never like this. The sky tore around her as she descended. Clouds spiraled outward, wind rushing past in silver ribbons. Stars blurred, streaking into long trails of light. She could feel Zeus's power coursing beside her, a golden river plunging toward the mountain faster than she could fly. Her heart raced. What if I'm too late? The thought pierced her, sharp and sudden. What if the spell took hold without her at his side? What if he slipped into eternal sleep without hearing her voice one last time? Panic, raw, divine panic, surged through her veins. Her horses flew faster. The moonlight behind her flickered violently as if straining to keep up. She leaned forward, urging the chariot to break the very fabric of night. "Please," she whispered, "please, let me get there." The mountain came into view, the cave, the soft glow within. Her heart lifted and broke in the same breath. She was close. As Selene landed outside the cave, the first wave of Zeus's power swept through the forest, a golden shimmer rippling across the snow, melting frost and bending trees in a single, silent bow. Selene froze. Then she ran. Her feet barely touched the ground. Her glow intensified, filling the cave entrance with blinding silver. She rushed inside and stopped. Endymion was stirring. Not waking, not truly, but drifting into something deeper. Something permanent. His breathing slowed. His lashes fluttered once. A faint golden pulse glowed beneath his skin, at his temples, at his throat, at the fragile hollow of his chest. Selene's voice cracked. "No, wait. I'm here." She knelt beside him, her hands trembling violently as she cupped his face. His lips parted slightly, as though he were about to speak, as though he could sense her presence one last time. "Endymion," she whispered, her voice breaking. "My love, stay with me until it takes you. Don't go alone." Zeus's light washed over his body, gentle, quiet, powerful. The cave filled with shimmering gold and pale silver. Two divine forces, thunder and moonlight, collided in soft harmony around the sleeping youth. Endymion exhaled deeply, a breath that seemed to stretch into eternity. Selene leaned close, brushing her forehead against his. "I'm here," she breathed. "I'm with you. I won't leave you." He did not respond, but his heartbeat, slow, steady, shifted subtly beneath her touch, not stopping, not weakening, changing, becoming something beyond mortal rhythm, forever slow, forever calm, forever tethered to the eternal night. Selene felt it happen, the moment the spell sealed, the moment time loosened its grip on him, and fell away, the moment his life slipped into an immortal stillness, a stillness he would never wake from. His eyes, already closed, relaxed further, as if sinking into the deepest sleep imaginable. His muscles softened, his breath settled into a quiet cadence that would never quicken again. A serene expression, peaceful, untouched, dream-laden, settled onto his face. And then, the golden glow faded. The cave fell silent. Endymion slept, not as mortals sleep, not as gods rest, but as a soul crystallized in time, eternal, untouched, unchanging. Selene pressed her hand to his chest, and felt the slow, steady heartbeat there, alive, but forever sleeping. She exhaled a shuddering breath. "Thank you," she whispered into the dimming gold of Zeus's fading power. Then her voice cracked into a sob. "And forgive me." She rested beside him, her head on his chest, her tears falling silently, each drop of moonlight clinging to his skin, like stars scattered across a night that would never end. Above the cave, the moon glowed brighter than it ever had. The world had changed, history had shifted, a mortal life had been stolen from time, and Selene had won the eternity she begged for, at a price she would spend all of time paying. For a long time Selene did not move. She lay curled beside Endymion, her cheek resting on his chest, listening to the new rhythm of his heartbeat, slow, constant, unchanging, unhurried by time. It was still human, but forever softened, forever gentled, forever suspended in that fragile place between dream and death. A heartbeat without future, a heartbeat without end. Her breath trembled against his skin. The miracle had worked. He would never age. He would never weaken. He would never slip from her grasp into the decay that claimed mortals like the turning of seasons. He would remain young, beautiful, untouched, exactly as she had loved him. And yet, as Selene lifted her head from his chest and looked upon him, her breath caught in her throat. He was beautiful, yes, just as he had been, just as she remembered, but the stillness, the absolute, unbreathing stillness of his sleep, it pierced her. He had always been quiet, serene, untroubled in dreams, but now, his tranquility was too perfect, too absolute, too final. A flicker of fear, sharp as a cut, passed through her. Had she saved him, or had she erased him? Her fingers shook as she brushed a curl from his brow. He did not stir, not as he used to, not with the soft micro-expressions of mortal dreams, the tiny movements that revealed life's presence beneath the veil of slumber. He was not dead, but she suddenly understood. He would never again react. Not truly, not knowingly, not consciously. Her breath hitched. She had prepared for this. She had told herself she was ready. She had insisted she could live with anything, so long as time could never take him. But understanding something is not the same as witnessing it, and witnessing is not the same as living it. Her heart cracked softly, as though a hairline fracture had formed beneath her immortality. But she swallowed the tremor. She forced herself to exhale slowly, smoothing her palm over his cheek. "You're safe," she whispered, though he could not hear her. "You're mine, and you will always be." Her voice broke. "I will make this enough." The cave responded to her grief, the way the night always responded to the moon. The shadows softened. The air warmed. Moonlight, faint and trembling, glittered across the stone walls like scattered crystal. Even the moss beneath Endymion seemed to pulse faintly, glowing from the residue of Zeus's power, echoing the eternal heartbeat of the boy who slept upon it. Selene sat up slowly. She studied him with the devotion of a priestess before a sacred altar, committing every detail to memory, even though she knew he would never change. The gentle slope of his nose, the curve of his lips, the dark sweep of his lashes, the softness in his jawline, untouched by the sharpness age would have carved. He looked like a statue sculpted by the gods, but he was warm, breathing, alive, but unreachable. Selene felt the paradox coil inside her like a serpent. He would never leave her. He would never love another. He would never slip through her fingers like mortal lovers slip from time. But neither would he ever wake, or smile at her, or know her. He was here, but he was gone. Her heart twisted painfully. She leaned forward and pressed a kiss to his temple. This time, he did not stir at all. Her breath trembled. "It's all right," she whispered shakily, though she wasn't sure who she was reassuring. "You're dreaming. You're warm. You're here." Tears slid down her cheeks. small glowing droplets that clung to his unmoving lashes before sliding into his hair. She brushed them away quickly, ashamed of her own weakness. Hadn't she wanted this? Hadn't she begged for it? Hadn't she chosen this fate with open eyes? She forced herself to exhale. This first night was the hardest. She knew that. She had to grow accustomed to his stillness, to the silence between them, to the eternity she had asked for. She moved closer, curling her body beside his again. "Sleep," she whispered, then softer. "Sleep forever. I will keep vigil." Hours passed. The moon rose high overhead, shining directly through the cave mouth, its light pooling around the two of them like a quiet blessing. Selene remained at Endymion's side, her fingers gently tracing the shape of his hand, her forehead resting against his shoulder. Every so often she murmured something, soft, melodic syllables intended to soothe herself as much as him. "I'm right here, you're not alone. I won't leave you. You will never be harmed. You will never grow cold." Her voice trembled with each promise. In the deep hours of the night she realized something new. She had not saved him from time. She had bound him to her. A fragile, eternal tether. A one-sided communion. A love frozen in moonlight. And she accepted it, with sorrow, with devotion, with trembling hands. Because loving him any other way would have meant losing him. And losing him would have destroyed her. For mortals, a night is a brief thing. A handful of hours. A temporary escape. A darkness that lasts only long enough for dreams to rise and vanish like dew. But for Selene, for a goddess bound to the rhythm of the moon, a night was a vast and sacred silence, and now her nights belonged entirely to him. At first, Selene measured eternity in nights. Every evening, she descended from the sky with trembling urgency. She walked into the cave with soft steps. She knelt by Endymion's side as though entering a temple built for her heart alone. She kissed his brow. She brushed his hair back. She whispered stories into his unmoving ears. At dawn she left him with reluctance that nearly tore her in half. But she always returned. Every night, without fail. She began to notice small things, patterns in his stillness, rhythms in his breathing, the faintest nuances in how his body reacted to the changing seasons outside the cave. Though he slept eternally, his body lived, endured, shifted with warmth and cold. She learned the language of his eternal slumber, and he became the center of her existence. Over time, Selene's devotion grew deeper and stranger. She spoke to him more, not because she expected him to answer, but because her heart could no longer hold its own thoughts in silence. Some nights she told him stories of constellations that had been born recently in the heavens, of oceans reshaping shorelines under her light, of new mortal lovers who kissed under her glow. Other nights she confessed things she had never said aloud. Her loneliness, her doubts, the way her heart ached each dawn as she left him behind. There were nights she lay beside him, head resting on his chest, breathing his unchanged scent, mountain air, crushed grass and the faint warmth of living flesh. "Hearts were not meant to remain unbroken," she whispered once, her voice trembling against his throat. "And yet mine is whole only because you breathe." Sometimes she cried, sometimes she laughed softly, tracing his lips as though imagining what his smile would look like if it had belonged to someone who could open his eyes. Sometimes she simply watched him, memorizing the face that would never grow old. The world changed outside. Empires rose and fell in the distance. Languages evolved. Forests grew, burned, and regrew. But Endymion did not move, and Selene's vigil did not falter. The contrast grew unbearable. Mortals lived and died in waves outside the cave. Generations passed. Children born under Selene's moonlight grew into elders, and their grandchildren whispered stories of the glowing woman seen wandering the woods on certain nights. They did not know it was the moon herself. They did not know she was guarding something, someone who slept beyond the reach of all mortal things. Selene watched all of it. From the doorway of the cave. From the sky above. from the quiet earth beside her beloved. She sometimes wondered what Endymion might have become had she allowed him to live his life. A shepherd with wind-chapped cheeks and gentle hands. A husband, perhaps. A father, a storyteller by the hearth. A man who grew old surrounded by people he loved. But she had stolen that future from him to keep him perfect. To keep him beautiful. To keep him hers. Her chest tightened whenever she imagined the life he would never have. But then she looked at him, peaceful, untouched, glowing in the silver cradle of her light, and she reminded herself, he would never suffer, he would never grieve, he would never feel the ache of aging bones or failing breath, he would never fear death. She had given him a perfect ending, a perfect stillness. It is enough, she whispered to herself. It must be enough. As the centuries rolled on, Selene discovered a strange truth. Love without change becomes solitude. She had him, always, completely, but she also lost the parts of love that mortals cherish. Shared glances, laughter, words, touches returned. Breath synchronized by choice, not spell. She grew intimate with a kind of sorrow humans rarely know. The sorrow of loving someone who cannot love back, even though they live. Every night she pressed her hand to his cheek. Every night it was warm. Every night it was the same. Sometimes she longed for him to stir. Just a flicker, a whisper, a tightening of the eyes. Anything to show that some piece of his soul could still reach toward her. But Endymion slept, and slept, and slept. The spell held him gently. Deeply, perfectly, too perfectly. Selene brushed a tear from his cheek one night. A tear that had fallen from her eyes, but looked as though it might have come from his. She kissed it away. I love you, she whispered. I will love you until the last night of the world. Her voice did not echo, but her vow filled the cave with a quiet, heartbreaking truth. She would outlove him. She would outgrieve him. She would outlast him, until the end of all things. Outside the cave, the world remade itself again and again. Centuries churned like tides, empires collapsed to dust, kingdoms rose where forests had once stood, languages died and were reborn, new constellations appeared, new myths replaced old ones. Mortals forgot what their ancestors had sworn was true. But here, in this small unchanging sanctuary on the slopes of Mount Latmus, nothing shifted, nothing aged, nothing ended. The cave was frozen in its own pocket of timelessness, preserved by the presence of a mortal who slept in the arms of a goddess. Selene saw every change in the world. She watched everything move forward, everything except the boy who held her heart. There was a time when shepherds still roamed the hills. They spoke Old Greek, their voices echoing through the valleys as they called to their flocks. Sometimes Selene saw them from the cave entrance, children running barefoot under the moonlight, laughing, unaware that a goddess watched from the shadows. Then, centuries later, there were no shepherds. Different people lived on the mountain, different gods were worshipped, different stories were told. Selene listened to mortals around campfires speak of moon goddesses, with names she did not recognize. Some called her Artemis, some called her Luna, some forgot she existed at all. But the cave remained unchanged, because the boy inside never forgot her, even if he could not open his eyes. The forest outside the cave grew dense for a time. Trees stretched high, blocking the sky, their roots thickening around the mountain like ancient veins. Selene would part them gently with her light to make her way inside. Then, centuries later, the forest burned in a great fire. Smoke choked the air. Embers rained down like fallen stars. Selene shielded Endymion's cave with her own luminous body, standing at the entrance through the entire blaze, her light pressing back the flames, her tears turning into silver steam. When the fire finally died, the forest lay black and quiet. But inside the cave, Endymion slept unchanged. His breath steady, his skin unscarred, his beauty untouched. Selene lowered herself beside him and held his hand, the sorrow of 1,000 burned trees, weighing heavily on her immortal heart. "You are safe," she whispered. "You will always be safe." Time continued to march. The world beyond the mountain grew louder. Villages became towns. Towns grew into cities. Mortals built temples, then abandoned them. They forged iron, then steel. They raised armies. They wrote books. They painted skies in pigments stolen from earth and bone. And through it all, no one knew that a goddess knelt every night by a boy who had once been a shepherd, and was now an ageless myth sleeping in the dark. Occasionally, a wanderer would speak in hushed tones of the spirit of Latmus, a woman of silver light who walked the hillside at night, face full of sorrow, hands glowing with unearthly tenderness. But myths fade, and eventually even that story was lost. Selene no longer cared. Her world had narrowed to one breath, one chest rising and falling, one face illuminated by her eternal light. Endymion was her universe. Everything else was noise. As millennia passed, Selene's glow changed. Not dimmed, not brightened. Changed. There was a softness to her now, a sorrow woven into the edges of her light, a quiet ache layered beneath her serenity. Immortality had been simple once, a path traced in silver, a ritual of night rising and day falling. Now immortality felt complicated, sharp, bitter, heavy, because loving something that does not change while everything else around you does, makes eternity stretch unbearably long. Sometimes Selene pressed her palm to Endymion's cheek, and whispered, "I do not know if this is blessing or curse." Her tears reflected moonlight, falling silently onto his still warm chest. She did not regret her choice, but she carried it like a wound, a beautiful wound, a beloved wound, a wound she had begged for, and one she would never heal from. Eventually, Selene stopped wandering beyond the hillside. She no longer cared to witness kingdoms rise. She no longer traced the edges of oceans. She no longer visited the other gods. Even her chariot seemed to mourn the nights she left it waiting by the mountain, unused. For Selene's life was now divided into two things: the cave, and everything outside it. Inside the cave, time stood still. Outside it, time roared forward. Inside the cave, her heart was anchored. Outside it, she felt lost. She found herself sitting closer to Endymion each night, curling her body around his, resting her head on his shoulder, pulling his hand to her lips, so she could kiss each unchanging finger. "You are my night," she whispered into the dimness. "You are my eternity." And somewhere deep in his eternal dream, perhaps he heard her, perhaps he saw her, perhaps he existed with her in a place where time belonged only to them. But in the waking world, he remained perfectly still, perfectly asleep, perfectly hers, and perfectly alone. No one, mortal or divine, truly knows what dreams are. To mortals, dreams are flickers of memory and imagination, shifting scenes, shadows wearing familiar faces, stories stitched together by the mind in the dark. But for a mortal caught in a divine sleep, dreams are not fleeting, dreams are not random, dreams are worlds. Endymion lived inside one. Selene often asked herself, in the quiet hours when her tears slipped silently down her cheeks, does he dream of me? Does he feel my presence? Does he know I am here? The questions haunted her the way her love clung to her, gentle, constant, heavy as moonlit snow. She leaned over his sleeping form night after night, whispers breaking upon his stillness like waves against stone. What world holds you, my love? Do you walk in fields? Do you chase the sheep you tended in life? Is there a moon in your dream sky? Is it? Her voice cracked. Do you see me there? He never answered. But sometimes the faintest smile curved his lips. And on those nights, Selene's breath caught, because she allowed herself to believe that he did. If she could have followed him into his dream, she would have seen this. A field of silver grass, stretching endlessly beneath the moon that never moved in the sky. A moon luminous, soft and impossibly familiar, Endymion walked barefoot through that field. He did not know he slept. He did not know he had lived. He did not know he had died. He did not know anything except that the world around him felt peaceful. Time was nothing. Seasons did not exist. Memory floated like mist that curled out of reach. But he knew one thing. He knew the presence, the silver glow across the horizon, the warmth brushing the edge of his dream skin, the quiet comfort that wrapped around him like a blanket. He did not know her name, but he knew her. She was the warmth in the stillness. She was the light in the dream night. She was the reason his heartbeat remained steady and soft. He felt her. Every time Selene knelt beside him. Every time her hand brushed his cheek. Every time her tears fell onto his unmoving skin. Those touches became sensations in his dream. Warmth on his cheek. Light across his closed eyes. Silver drifting through the dream sky. He would look up at that dream moon and feel joy he could not explain. He would stretch out his hand toward it without knowing why. He would whisper into the field of silver grass, "Come back." The word did not form on mortal lip. It formed in the dream, in the heart. And Selene, watching from the waking world, felt that word without ever hearing it. She felt it as the faintest shift in his breath, a ripple in the cave's air, a thinning of the space between them, a resonance, a calling, a longing. As centuries passed, Endymion's dream expanded. It began as a quiet field, then mountains took shape, and forests, and winding rivers that glowed faintly with silver light. A world slowly formed, a world built from Selene's nightly stories. Every tale she whispered to him, every memory she shared, every confession she made, became landscape. She told him once about the oceans that glittered under her full light, and in his dream a silver sea appeared. She told him of constellations she painted across the sky, and stars blossomed into being above his dream horizon. She told him how she had discovered him on Mount Latmus, and suddenly his dream contained soft rolling hills, where he felt inexplicably at home. Her love became geography, her presence became atmosphere, her devotion became terrain, and though he never woke, never opened his eyes, never spoke aloud, he lived every moment of eternity in a dream shaped by her. One night Selene placed her ear to Endymion's chest, and whispered, "If you dream, I hope I am in it." A tear slipped down her cheek. She closed her eyes, imagining the world he must be lost inside. "I hope you see light. I hope you feel warmth. I hope you know love." Her voice softened to a fragile whisper. "I hope you know me." She lifted her head. Endymion did not move. Not a flicker. Not a sigh. Not a tremor beneath the spell. But as she watched him, a faint glow shimmered beneath his closed eyelids. The smallest reflection of silver, like moonlight passing across the surface of a dream. Selene's breath halted. Her tears fell freely now, shimmering like fallen stars. "Do you see me?" she whispered, trembling. "Do you dream of me?" The cave seemed to hold its breath. Then a tiny smile appeared on his lips, soft, peaceful, unmistakable. Selene covered her mouth with her hand, a sob silently shaking through her. "Yes," she breathed, not as a question, but as an answer she felt with her entire immortal being. "Yes, you did." For mortals, grief is a wave. It rises, it falls, it breaks, it passes. But for a goddess, grief is an ocean with no shore. It does not pass. It does not fade. It simply becomes part of her, like salt woven into the sea. There were nights when Selene could bear it easily, when she curled beside Endymion and watched him breathe, feeling her heart soften instead of crack. But there were other nights, nights when the stillness was too much, too complete, too eternal, nights when she reached for his hand and felt warmth, but never movement, nights when she pressed her lips to his forehead and realized she was kissing a moment frozen in time. Nights when she whispered, "I love you," and the silence answered. She had begged Zeus for this fate. She had chosen it. She had known the price. But knowing the price is not the same as living with it. Her grief was not loud. It was not violent. It was soft, slow, endless, like moonlight breaking over a lonely sea. There were moments, tiny, tender, unbearable, that tore at her immortality more than thunder or war or ancient loss ever could. A night when her hand lingered on his face, and she realized she could no longer imagine him aging. A night when she tried to remember what his voice might have sounded like, but she didn't know, she had never heard it. A night when she realized she would never know the color of his waking eyes. A night when she pressed her cheek to his and whispered, "Do you know me? Would you have loved me if you had woken?" And that whisper, fragile as frost, cut her more deeply than any blade forged by gods, because she would never know. She had stolen the question from existence. She had stolen the answer from herself. Love had given her eternity with him, and taken every possible future in exchange. But for all her sorrow, Selene's devotion never wavered. She still came every night. She still knelt beside him. She still whispered to him as though he could hear. Sometimes she told him about the night sky. "There is a new star near Orion," she murmured once. "I painted it there, at dusk, for you." Sometimes she told him stories of the world. "There are new cities near your mountain," she whispered. "They shine at night. I think you would have liked them." Sometimes she told him memories she cherished. "She once smiled in your sleep," she said softly, "when I touched your cheek." And sometimes she simply held him, cradling his face in her shimmering hands, pressing her forehead to his, closing her eyes and pretending that eternity was enough. Over the centuries, Selene grew accustomed to a new ritual. Every night she broke. Every night she healed. Every night she loved him again. Grief, she discovered, could coexist with adoration, and devotion could coexist with despair. She would weep by his side, her tears dripping onto his unmoving chest like drops of silver rain. Then she would wipe them away, kiss his cheek, and whisper, "It's all right. I am here. I am yours. Always." And the night would knit itself around them like a fragile cocoon, a goddess and her sleeping mortal, a vigil that outlived civilizations, a love that outlasted even memory. Mortals gazed upward at Selene's glow, marveling at how her light carried a strange sorrow, a soft ache that lingered even on the brightest nights. Poets wrote of a lonely moon. Philosophers wondered why the moon's phases sometimes dimmed, as if she were tired from crying. They told stories of a goddess who loved a mortal too deeply, and could not let him go. They were right, more right than they ever knew, and though she did not hear their stories, Selene felt the truth of them in the hollow ache beneath her ribs. Love had made her radiant, love had made her strong, love had made her desperate. And love, too, had made her lonely. No matter how long the world turned, no matter how many civilizations died and were reborn, no matter how deeply her grief carved itself into her light, Selene never left. She came every night. She knelt beside him. She kissed his brow. She whispered into the silence. In life, he had been mortal, but in his sleep, he had become the anchor of an immortal heart, the center of a goddess's universe, the sorrow and the solace of her eternity, forever hers, forever distant, forever peaceful, forever asleep. And Selene, goddess of the moon, loved him still, loved him endlessly, loved him enough to break forever, and still return to him each night, loved him enough to make eternity bearable, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. Starsoft Dreamer, before we go deeper into the story, let the cave settle around you. Let the world grow quiet again. Let my voice be a low, warm whisper in the dark. This cave, the cave where Endymion sleeps, is not only a place in myth, it is a place inside you, a place where stillness waits, a place where noise dissolves, a place where the ache of the day loosens into something gentler. Let us go there together, slowly, softly. Imagine you are standing just outside the cave mouth. Night air fills your lungs, cool, clean, silvered by moonlight. Behind you, the world is wide, busy, heavy, but in front of you is quiet. A place without rush, without demands, without time. The air inside the cave is cool, yes, but not cold. It is the cool of stone that has learned to welcome warmth, of earth that remembers ancient nights, of a place where a goddess has sat for centuries, letting her light soften everything it touched. Let yourself step forward. Just one step. Feel the ground beneath your feet soften. Feel the air shift around your skin. Feel the darkness open like a pair of gentle hands, inviting you in. Your shoulders drop. Your breath deepens without effort. Your thoughts begin to grow quieter, as though the shadows absorb them like ink into paper. Now imagine a glow further ahead. Soft, silver, pale as frost, warm as the inside of a dream. This is Selene's light. It does not blind. It does not demand. It does not pierce you. It simply surrounds you, the way moonlight surrounds the world at night, slipping gently over hills and trees and sleeping rooftops. Let that silver glow reach you. Let it brush your face. Let it touch your chest. Let it soften the tension behind your ribs. Let it ease the tightness in your throat that the day may have carved into you. You are safe here. You are welcome here. You belong in this still, quiet place where nothing is expected of you. There came a time when mortals stopped telling her story. They forgot the shepherd who slept forever, forgot the goddess who loved him more fiercely than the heavens allowed, forgot the miracle on the mountain, because human lives were short, and human memories shorter. New myths filled the world, new gods rose from the breath of fear and wonder. Selene's name became a whisper, then a symbol, then a pale reflection in poetry. Some believed the moon was a cold stone. Some believed it was an empty sky. Some believed it was nothing but reflected sunlight. No one believed it was a goddess with a broken heart, and a devotion that even eternity envied. But the forgetting did not matter. Selene was still there, night after night, age after age, long after mankind stopped watching the sky for her. She watched only him. And now, my little dreamer, if your eyes are still open, let them grow heavy. If your thoughts are still loud, let them walk slowly into their own distant silver fields. If this story kept you company in the dark, know this: some loves do not end. Some devotions do not fade. Some quiet vigils, yours included, are seen by the night, even when no one else notices. If this story held your hand tonight, subscribe to the Temple of Nyx, so you can return here again and again, whenever your mind needs a shadowed place to rest. And when you wake, if you remember, tell us in the comments, what part of Selene and Endymion stayed with you the most? Did you think her choice was love, or selfishness, or both? And where in the world were you listening from? And what time was it when the night found you? For now, rest. Let the night hold you as gently as she held him. Good night.